Hello, hello. Okay, we are going live with Rami today, so let me call her up. La, la, la. All right, Rami, I just sent you the request, so see if you get it. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Looking all pretty for me. How's that look like this? I'm good. I'm good. I was just chilling on the couch and now I'm not. Now I'm chilling on a chair.
Well, I like your chair. Okay, so let
Thanks.
me let me give you everyone a brief introduction to who you are. So Rami
Sure.
Hay, for starters, is a lawyer, but just to say that she's a lawyer would be like a huge
Oh,
understatement. She's like board of directors, boss lady type lawyer who is also
you're so sweet.
uh, a tarot reader, and she's kind of sort of into astrology and energies, which for those of you that know me personally know that I am too. And she has been very vocal about the farmers' issues. And she has also behind the scenes been helping me a lot to like understand a lot of things that I don't, because um this is new to all of us, right?
Mhm.
None of us have been involved in Indian politics as we are right now. Um, because of the farm laws, because our community is at stake. So we will be talking to Rami about everything. So for starters, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, so thanks, Monica. That's so sweet. Everything that Monica just said, I am a lawyer. I do a lot of mentorship for law students. I volunteer a lot. I've been in the legal community now. I've been doing a lot of talks on the farmers' protest, and I have one next week, and I have one the week after at two different law schools, and so that's exciting. It's everything I've done is or everything I'm doing, all the infographics I do myself, the research I do myself. I'm really mindful in what I put out there because I am a lawyer, so I want to make sure everything's right, or at least like how much credibility that we can get from what the media, right? That's a
Mm.
whole other issue. And so all of that stuff I do on my own and on the outside of like being a lawyer. And yeah, in terms of spiritual stuff, I do have a whole spiritual business. I'm like what they call a divine feminine, like conscious awakened person. And so through that, I do tarot. I have a soul growth program and I have clients. And so it keeps me very, very busy. Needless to say, I have three jobs. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I'm from Vancouver, and I think people here were shocked that, well, not people here, people that don't really know me personally or haven't followed me for a long time were shocked to see the amount of advocacy work I am doing, if we even want to say that. And so
Yeah, I
I don't, I'm reading I'm so confused with the comments. I'm not gonna read the comments because we're gonna get distracted.
I
But
ignore it, but we're
yeah.
getting proposals.
Oh, I see. That's sick. All right, nice to know. You're already engaged.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, and so people that know Vancouver know that or like this area is like full of influencers or what you want to say. Indian wedding industry is huge here. And so people that just know you from online, even maybe you've reached this, like have the same, right? Like your following and your demographic is a lot bigger than mine in terms of acting and Punjab in general. And so it was like, oh wow, I'm so happy to see you advocating. Also so surprised to see how much you're advocating.
Hmm.
Right. And so for me, I was like, this is what I do for a living. I'm a lawyer. Like, I didn't choose to be a lawyer for the sake of it. Like, I chose to
Hmm.
be a lawyer to advocate. And now that we've all had the opportunity to advocate for our people, like where we're from, that's
Hmm.
something I've taken very seriously. And I think that maybe, as I said, it goes for you too. It's shocking to see the extent in which we're doing it. Like, we didn't post one time and say that we supported the farmers' protest, right?
Hmm.
Something that we're actively engaged in to create awareness around. And so that's been fun. I mean, obviously stressful, for all of us that are doing it a lot, or even those that are watching and participating in other ways. But I don't know. I think it's been really beneficial, and we've been seeing some really good traction lately.
I think we have too. But one thing I want to talk about in particular are the BJP bots and the hate.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel it, I see it, I turn around and block it, but I also, because of being part of the entertainment field, I also have an extremely thick skin, whereas like uh things don't bother me as much. So I wanna know how you deal with it and how you put up with it and how extreme it is for you.
Yeah, so I'm similar to you in that my skin is very thick. I've dealt with the hate in other ways before. Like I'm divorced, and so like during that time, people were giving me hate. Right? People have always said stuff about me. Like what you see online is really authentically who I am offline. I'm actually sometimes more introverted, just because like I like to have my downtime. Given we all live busy lives, but I've been so used to people just saying shit to me or like just not agreeing with what I do or who I am as a person just because they don't feel comfortable like being as authentic, and you're very authentic as well, right? Like you're not showing anybody, like you're not faking it. You're not sugarcoating who you are. And I've always been that way. And what has been shocking is like the brown on brown hate, which I talked about like even after the Rihanna post was like seeing how Punjabi individuals started just speaking down and not supporting Hindus that, felt offended by Rihanna wearing, a certain like Ganesh Ji and stuff like that. And I was like, I was speaking out for Hindus to say, this is why they feel upset. Let's just like give them some space to be heard. And like the negativity I got was off the chart. Where, I disabled for a day and like I was just like, what the hell? Like I was as an empath, right? As someone that's spiritual, I was like absorbing all of that hate on behalf of like those that were offended. And I was just really shocked to see like all these Punjabis that are saying unity, unity, right?
Hmm.
Kasan Ekta, like when it came to supporting Hindus who are also farmers, let's say,
Hmm.
it wasn't reciprocated. So that was upsetting for me. When it comes to the bots, it's yeah, like I usually just block and delete. Um, and I just like read it and I'm like, that's so ironic and contradictory, but sure, right? Like it's fucking stupid. It's when
Yeah,
I know somebody's like a real account where I'm
yeah.
like, you're that ignorant. I'm like, all right, whatever, right? Like we'll win some, we lose some, but it's it's interesting how obvious like the bot accounts are at times.
Yes.
Like when they say something so absurd,
Yeah,
you're like,
it's pre-planned, and a lot of the times, like the only thing they say is read the laws, read the laws, read the laws.
yeah,
Like if we're arguing the laws, especially on Twitter, like if we're arguing the laws and if we're arguing the details, isn't it but obvious we've read them?
yeah, yeah, and yeah, like I've read them back to front. I did a whole post on it.
Which I
Of
shared.
Yeah, that one, like I did that whole post on it. Like I've done three now. And like the people that are commenting saying, oh, well, you haven't even read the laws to know that there's no minimum support price. It's like, yeah, Section 6 of the first law actually has no guaranteed levy. Right? Like,
Yeah.
what do you assume we don't know what we're talking about? America, like that's not how it works, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So
we cannot
so
read.
so Rami, for the people who are watching this who are completely oblivious, give them like a once over. I mean, like tell them what the laws are, what they entail, and the fact that MSP is not mentioned in the laws once.
Yeah, it's not mentioned in the laws, so I'll try to keep it brief as possible to name like the main things that are enough to have a consultation, right? Like first of all, they're passed without consulting farmers, without consulting opposition parties, passed during a pandemic by people cheering yes or no. That's
Yeah,
how these laws are fucking passed, right?
and no debate.
Hey!
No, the other fact for me is that like every time like a politician says something, like the Indian consulate or anyone is like, we passed it democratically with the debate. And we're like, there's videos of opposition asking for a debate and them not getting it. Like, what are you guys on? So
Like, what kind of debate is that?
Anyways, keep going. I'm sorry. I had to just
Yeah,
throw that in
no,
there.
no. Okay, so no minimum support price, as people may know or not, under the Mundy system, you're guaranteed a certain minimum price to be able to go and auction your goods in a certain geographical area. These new laws don't guarantee you a minimum price. There's the government's trying to say this is beneficial because then corporations and farmers can talk about a price, can come up with an agreement, which hey, if you're in Canada, sure, sounds great. But a lot of these farmers don't have the resources to have a lawyer. You know, they know their rights, but like in order to actually have a contract that both parties agree on, it's very, very difficult. And then let's say you have a dispute with that contract and you don't like what happens with it. You've already agreed to it, but then you have to dispute through the government. You can't go through the court. And so those are a couple things. The problem with you being able to directly talk with corporations is, you know, fear of exploitation. And so whether they upfront don't offer you a lot of money or they offer you, and then farmers may take that out of convenience, right? Rather than going to the Mundy that they have to go to, you know, in terms of distance. If not, maybe they'll be paid a lot. Then the Mundy system in that area won't work anymore. And then the corporations have control over how much these farmers are going to be paid. There's no guarantee that you get payment before the goods are made. So there's no prepayment, it's payment upon delivery. But then like the corporation that's buying these goods can say, I don't like the quality of the goods, and they don't have to pay you. Right? Or they can withhold, if it's seeds, they can withhold 1/3 of the amount. So they can pay you 2/3, they can withhold 1/3, which will then get paid upon when like a neutral party, who's neutral in India, a neutral party looks at the quality of the goods. If an order is made and it's not abided by, so let's say there's a dispute and they come up with an order, right? The farmer, a small to marginal farm owner, is not going to be represented by a lawyer. They can barely afford clothes, okay? How are they going to go afford, and it's like go and afford a lawyer, no matter how much they know, no matter like how knowledgeable they are, right? Some of them can't read, some of them can't write, but we don't want to say that's the majority. We want like people to know that they're smart, but it doesn't mean that they will then know exactly what needs to go into a contract, right? They may not, but let's say there's an agreement made and it's not followed, or an order is made through a dispute resolution and it's not followed, they can be jailed and they can be fined, right? Like some, like up to like 5 lakh. Like people don't make 5 lakh like in like a decade, these small to marginal farm owners, never mind like being able to pay that fine.
Yeah.
If you don't pay that fine, you're going to go to jail. And people are already in debt because of like, you know, these new changes that were made with, you know, the seeds, with the water, the systems that are being put in place, which is screwed with the water and the soil. And it just ends up being like a bigger and bigger problem. So they're trying to say, yeah, it's great. Corporations can come in and, you know, work with the farmers, but it's just laughable to me, because at the back of one of the bills it says this was done during COVID for the public interest. Public interest? You didn't even ask the fucking public.
Exactly.
Right?
They also removed food and produce items from the Essential Commodities Act. So Essential Commodities Act was basically an act that prevents hoarding, right? So when you have hoarding, it decreases demand, right? Hoarding increases a surplus of something, so it decreases demand. So therefore, if a farmer is selling food and produce items, they have to sell it at lesser and lesser prices, because I mean, nobody wants to buy something they already have. Then on the other hand, if a corporate is hoarding food, they control how much of that is in circulation in the market. So then that, like, the people who have to turn around and buy it, they have to buy it at higher and higher prices. So do you understand? Corporates are hoarding, so then they buy the produce at lower items and sell at high prices. So it's like a double whammy profit for them, but hurting the regular folk like double the time.
And the thing is that on top of that, what you're saying, I totally forgot to mention. I'm happy you did. is they've changed, what is an essential versus non-essential commodity. Like non-essential commodity, they're now labeling as some oils, onion. Like who makes tadka without onion, first of all? It's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Not dumb if you don't make it with onion, but generally, like the amount of Punjabis that use
That
onion
you,
are
yeah,
very.
yeah.
But like when it comes to the amount that like if you're essentially if you're not a corporation, so majority of these farmers are small to marginal. They're only allowed to make up to 100 kilograms. I don't know for what time span. 100 kilograms, let's say for the year. I don't know of those goods, non-essential commodities. Whereas these corporations can make up to 500. That's 5 times the amount, right? And then as we're talking about hoarding, so if they have the ability to make centers even on these farmers' lands in order to keep this produce, like you're saying, right, and then sell it at that price, it just ends up being an infiltration of the market overall, giving them more rights to even the farmers' produce, let's say, if they've made some sort of agreement.
I just took a screenshot of a certain somebody that's going to get blocked.
Yeah, I think I saw the same one because my face. Yo, sick story. I hope you're taking screenshots of these comments like we asked.
Yeah, please, the
So
sick
I can
story.
share them after, please.
Do that and throw them into our group chat.
Yeah. We're gonna get too distracted. But yeah, those are the laws for people that think that we don't know anything.
Oh my God. Oh. I find this more hilarious because it's you and like we've talked about this. Like so like now I'm like looking at it more to see like what they're saying and stuff. But like it's good to have your girls over there. Yeah, you two are Ashmeet. Oh my God, totally lost my train of thought. Okay, where were we? Essential Commodities Act. All right, so basically what we're saying is that like it's not even a joke, right? And
Yeah.
first off, the language in this bill is not complicated, right? I do think that a layperson has the ability to go in and read these and understand them, and it's very, very obvious that they're
Yeah.
essentially written for corporates, and
Yeah.
like it's not even a joke, like that's how obvious it is. So when we're talking like, oh, we're going to present this to the UN or we're going to send this to whatchamacalls it, our congressman, or they're going to look over it, like it's not a like it's very easy to pick up why
Yeah.
these were written, like very, very easy.
Yeah.
I just realized what sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else. Oh, okay. So, two things, Rami, that I think we should talk about. One, the World Trade Center's influence on the removal of MSP, and then the fact that these types of laws have been implemented in, US, Canada, across the European Union, UK, but they have very different economies in India.
Yeah. Yeah, like come the second one. So, I mean, it's happened in other countries. It's also happened in India. So this is an India-wide law, but it's already happened in Bihar. And 15 years ago, this Bihar is now top 3 poorest states in India, where those farmers are now going to Punjab to make a living. And so they've already seen a direct example as to how these laws have been detrimental to farmers already. Never mind to farmers of the whole nation compared to one state, right? And then plays into, of course, our not even belief, the fact that the Indian government in the past has not liked Punjabis and Sikhs or minorities, and we know that Modi does not, and does not like Muslims, right? So we already know that. And so we look at it from a broader lens. There's also the corporate control that kind of plays into the World Trade Center. But like people are like, oh yeah, like Bill Gates has done this or that. It's like Bill Gates is fucking involved in what's happening.
Yeah,
right? Like corporations are all involved. Like let's look at it wider. We were talking about this in the Zoom, right? I was like, let's look at it from a broad lens of how this is happening worldwide. Like how Boris Johnson had an effect on what's happening, how Costco does, how Walmart does, how Bill Gates does, how our government does, how trade works, how neoliberalism works in terms of corporate interest, as well as how that aligns with all the control they have with propaganda in order to manipulate a situation. But now it's all coming out to say, well, no, you're asking us to do this, 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 like, but we're smart enough to know that this does not like help our rights, right? Like maybe it's more professional and you get paid more money in Canada and the States, but like what do you have control over and what are they trying to regulate to a point that you can't even have control over your own land, right? Like unless you have certain regulations in place, for example, right?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up regulation. So basically, from my understanding was that the World Trade Organization wanted, you know, free trade in which, you know, other governments do not interfere. So basically, I mean, you have your export-import taxes that are placed upon by the government, but corporates, they kind of negotiate the trade deals amongst themselves. Now, what was happening in India that the agricultural sector was controlled by states, right? So it's one corporate could not negotiate with one corporate in India and be like, okay, this is what we're going to do, because each state had separate rules and regulations to go about it.
Yeah.
What this law does, it brings it under the central government's control, which is illegal in India because the Indian constitution dictates agriculture to be a state subject. And two, it takes away the MSP, which was also a World Trade Organization recommendation, because that's also a government control on trade, right? That's them regulating international trade.
Yeah.
However, the World Trade Organization did not ask for the removal of, you know, essential commodities protection on farm and produce goods, which is what they've done. They've not only taken MSP, which acted as a regulator, they've also taken off a safety net, so deregulating it further. So I don't know. So okay, so these laws were also implemented in the United States, Canada, and other, you know, more developed nations. However, in developed nations, the economy is based on multiple things, right?
Yeah.
Unlike India, where majority of the economy is solely and exclusively based on agriculture.
Yeah.
So in America, farmers that went under basically were able to go out, they were able to sell their farms at a decent price, they were able to go out, get jobs, and survive. But they're not going to be able to do that in India because there's no job market.
Yeah, there's no job market.
And I think that's the part that people are understanding. Everyone's like, oh, you know, they'll be able to sell to who. Like, and the other thing is, like,
then go where? They're gonna work on their own land.
Huh? I'm sorry.
They're gonna work on their own land for next to no money.
Exactly.
Right? That's where they're gonna be employed. And yeah, just one point on the regulation thing. Agriculture in like in Canada, there are federal there's federal consideration of agriculture overall, but then like you're saying, like it's state by state. So here, like province and territories have their own. Like every single province is different. What is grown in BC is not grown in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan has like potatoes and wheat. BC grows a lot of blueberry and corn. You know what I mean? And so it's like there's different things that need to happen in different provinces, for example. But then the government can have an overarching view. But as you're saying, they're taking away that the independent regulatory means for them to have a valid say, an objective one, and like a meaningful one enough, right? So you're talking about billions of people, or like over 1 billion people, compared to, you know, where we live. Canada is far less populated than the United States.
Yeah.
But you're putting all of that power into the national government.
Yeah.
Rather than saying the states continue to have these rights over what happens in their own quarters, right? And so yeah, and like the job market thing, like that's their specialty, right? Like in law, when we look at a quantum, so when we look at what their potential wage loss could be, let's say in a claim, we always consider what their job is, right? Like like for me, God forbid something happened to me, they would look at, okay, how much training has Rami gone through to become a lawyer? right? I'm so specialized in my field that if I can't sit at a desk for the rest of my life, I really can't do my job,
Mm-hmm.
right? That I've spent a lot of money to get to. So
Mm-hmm.
for farmers, it would be like, compared to, this is not meant to be offensive, but compared to someone that does like customer associate jobs, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
go to a different job that may be able to better accommodate. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't go, like I could go, but my life would be drastically changed in what I
Mm-hmm.
do. So with farmers, it's like, how much, knowledge and expertise and training do they have? Their lineage, their heritage, generations of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking at the potential wage loss for a farmer and what else they can do. It's like, what are they going to go to like the guy next door in the shade and start like making outfits? Like that's not what they're going to do. Like,
Yeah.
what potential is there to like, no offense, but like be a child? Like they're like, are they gonna go like cook? Like realistically, like if they don't have the educational background to go and find another job in a similar field, they're not going to exist. This is why they're already committing suicide over this, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
scary.
That's a huge point. Like already, first off, let's talk about farmer suicides and these insane debt that farmers have found themselves into because unregulated lending practices in India. Um,
Hmm.
um, so I'm not very well educated on this, but like, long story short, what we see happening in Punjab with farmers in debt is what Komal, our mutual friend Komal, likes to
Yeah.
call debt bondage.
Mhm.
Which is basically where you keep people in debt so that A, they can't disobey you, two, that they can't really get an education because education is too expensive and they have to go in under more debt to do that. Two, if they get an education, they can't get a job that'll pay off the debt. Two,
Yeah.
privatize the education. So what ends up happening is that these people are like, then when someone's not educated enough, you can then brainwash them into kind of believing whatever you want to believe. You can control them easier. And basically, what you have is a very modern day slave
Yeah.
situation going on. Rumi, correct, like, please add on to anything that I'm missing here.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because the thing is, and I actually see this a lot in the students I mentor. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that they're uneducated, it's just that I'm years ahead of some of these students, right? So I used to be at that point of I'm less than. And I talk about this so much in my spiritual work. Everything is so connected. What we are actually seeing is a mass awakening and movement that I've known was going to happen for over a year now. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
expect this to happen. I was getting signs about it last year, but I've been navigating the energies differently, and now I'm actually doing the advocacy work. So it's cool, but not what I expected. But when you look at it spiritually, so let's look at somebody that doesn't have education. The majority of these individuals, it doesn't mean it's true. These are the assumptions and how people work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Psychologically. Those that don't have education assume they're less than those that do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going more impressionable because you're going to look at the person that's educated as
Mm-hmm.
someone that knows more than you. So
Mm-hmm.
what they tell you becomes the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in these situations, when these farmers aren't educated
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking at the person next door, or even a corporation or the bank next door that actually doesn't really have their best interests, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they're like, these lucky have done all of this to get to a more successful spot.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to then maneuver what they do, thinking that they'll also be more successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it ends up being a situation where they're taken advantage of, right? Because they don't believe in their own value of self, right? That's where what it fundamentally comes down to. You don't believe in yourself to think that you know more about you or what you deserve. So then
Mm-hmm.
you let somebody else tell you that. That can even come down to the price that you pay for your crops. That happens in
Mm-hmm.
relationships. It happens in something I've been dealing with in like career lately, where I'm like, that's so not true, right? And it's something I see from a very spiritual lens, as I said, of how does it get manipulated? And now people are like, wait, no, 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 because it happened on such a massive scale. even like BLM, let's say now anti-Asian racism, what's happening in China, what's happening in Russia, all over the world, right? People
Mm-hmm.
are like, no, it's happening on such a mass scale. How could it be that we're all wrong?
Yeah.
Then the bots try to manipulate you, the government tries to manipulate you, but they do it, it's so blatantly obvious, their level of
Yeah.
ignorance when they do it. And as you're saying, these laws were written for corporations. And
Yeah.
by reading it, you see all of the safety nets that they have, all of the legal recourse, legal recourse, but basically they're negotiating with themselves when there's a dispute,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not actually negotiating with someone neutral. And so, yeah, when you don't value yourself and no matter what you do,
Mm-hmm.
that what the other person says to you holds more weight.
Exactly. Wow. Actually, I didn't think about the self-esteem perspective of this at all. And that's so true. Like you automatically end up believing what the other person has to say.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's
And on top of that, oh no, go on.
no, finish because I'm going to
I was going to
continue
say,
this one.
yeah, one of the comments in there just reminded me to talk about this. I did a video on this a couple of weeks ago, but the trauma of it all. So in spirituality, a lot of my videos are generally when you start to awaken, you start to see what your trauma is or what's going to like trigger it.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, our trauma is being triggered from generations, right?
Oh,
I think I talked about this a little on our Zoom call, but obviously not everybody was there.
uh-huh.
But our trauma is linked to our grandparents, our parents, and then to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we see the age of the partition, we see the age of Sikh genocide. Of course, this applies to everybody. I don't want to be like exclusive to Sikh Punjabis and or right, but let's just look at it from there because we have those examples of what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
That trauma that was because why that is
Mm-hmm.
because our grandparents already hold the seed to us
Mm-hmm.
because they hold our parents hold us, so that's why there's two generations. And so when this happened, right, it triggered what Eckhart Tolle, who is someone who's taught me a lot about my spirituality, what he calls the pain body.
Mm-hmm.
So that's triggered within you when a
Mm-hmm.
certain life event happens. But the life event or the similar emotion didn't actually have to happen in your physical world. It's something that could have been inherited. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're seeing a movement of all of this oppression coming to light. But since we're not conditioned like our grandparents and parents were, we're not
Mm-hmm.
dealing with it remotely the same in the sense that we are saying, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening. So that's why you see a large youth movement
Yeah.
compared to our parents and grandparents' generation.
Yeah.
It's because they're like chup chop rao, right? Like don't worry, both ho gaya. Or the union leaders like, oh no, everybody stay in peace.
Yeah.
Nobody ruffle feathers, right? They're in that mentality, which is for many reasons we already know.
Yeah.
But we are looking at it as a way of this is not happening for one more generation. We are
No.
not allowing it to happen. We have the means to stop it, right? So
I
it's important to know.
I love it, Rami. Like the way you're putting this into perspective. Like, okay, so just to reiterate what Rami just said, she explained the reason for the youth movement. And like I always say this, that the reason why I am active is because of my grandmother. The reason why a lot of my cousins are active is because of their grandmothers. And it's because, our grandparents and parents have seen things that they have passed down to us. And
Mm-hmm.
and I had a very obvious example during Thanksgiving when my grandma actually, saw the videos and pictures of people, moving through Haryana. Like she like just went into her head a little bit. But that's what triggers us, right? So when we're posting, when like, the accusations of sexual assault against Nodeep became public, that's what, like, those are the types of things that triggered us. When Ranjit Singh got arrested and brutally beaten and just like, absolutely terrorized by what is, the terrorist Indian government, like we all jumped into action because those images are already in our head
Yeah.
from like our earlier times. Like we've seen these images before and they represent a certain trauma that our community has gone through, and that's true. And I really like how you said that our generation is just like, no, son, we're not letting this happen again.
Yeah, it's not happening again, and that's why our families came to where we're at. So when we see people not speaking out against it, right? Like all these, either the followers in the sense of let's follow the trend, right? Not
Yeah.
our actual followers, because there's thousands of them that haven't posted, right? But, but like when we see the, no offense, guys, what I call the betas of the world. So those that will not lead by example, but will only follow the pack, which we have to acknowledge that, whatever, sure, right? Like we're vocal and we're alpha in that sense.
I
It's
love that
like,
you said betas of the world, because
yeah,
that's what they are. Like, just literally weak people.
yeah, and it's because like this is a grassroots movement. We haven't gotten the same like attention, right? But anyway, that's a whole other topic, which is not even wasn't even genuine attention that people were giving to BLM last year. Well, not a lot of people, which is really upsetting because
Hmm.
they're doing it for the sake of, doing something, even though it should have been to a, anyways, they should have followed through with that. But what I was going to say is, crap, I can't remember.
You were on a very beta mentality that you had, like, for instance, like certain people, when you started posting, when Rihanna posted, while it was cool,
Yeah.
and then they stopped. Oh, Ajay's in the house.
Oh, the privilege. Hi, Ajay. Oh, yeah. Screen. Oh my goodness. Earth is a triangle. Okay, what I was gonna say was the our parents came to Western. It doesn't have to be just America and Canada, or Canada or the States. I mean, UK, any sort of not oppressed area, if we want to put it that way, which is not true. Not third world. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
They came to give us privilege. They came to give us opportunity. And these people that aren't speaking out about, not even about that, but are not using the privileged voice that they
Mhm.
have it's spoken volumes, right? Like our movement could have been, I mean, we've done great work the last like 3 months, but like if everybody was posting, everybody that had gotten this privilege through their family leaving behind the motherland actually really looked at how privileged they are because of not living in India anymore. And they took that, no matter how many people they're telling it to, they took it to the streets to be like, fuck that. I'm only here because of, my parents moved here, my grandparents moved here.
Mhm.
Um, it would be monumental, but at the end of the day, they don't see it as their privilege, right? And so that's their lesson to learn. It's like they're that ingrained in like their own mind and their own ego that they don't think that anything can affect them. Like they don't look at where they came from and how this could have been us if our parents just decided that we're going to stay in India because we're more comfortable here.
Yeah. Facts. Facts. I also think that there's a lot of I see a lot of people acting like, oh, we're too cool for this. Like, this is a very like Indian thing
Yeah.
to do, and we're too cool for this. We're too cool to post about the farmers' protest because we're big
It's because
deals.
like, yeah, because the trauma, it's not happening 100, like, I mean, it has happened here in different ways, right, with racism, but like, because it didn't exactly happen here, they think it's not relevant to them or their experience.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh,
it's so like it's just so sad. And especially those that have made money off of our culture. And so as I said at the beginning, like the influencers or like the industry people that are local to Vancouver, there's a lot of them given how big the industry is here for weddings specifically, or hair and makeup, let's say.
uh-huh.
It's like all of them, or photographers, or even like local people that are very progressive, right? Generally very alpha. They've made money off of being Punjabi or Indian, if you want
Hmm.
to say, or have marketed themselves that way as somebody that associates themselves with South Asian culture, race, and or religion, but
Hmm.
now have just not done anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fact. Like, just look at like how many Indian people were posting about BLM. right?
Hmm.
And people in India as well. And with this, it's radio silence. So it's
Yeah.
like, do you really stand for social justice, or did you do it for your Instagram feed?
Well, they
Um,
did it for their Instagram page.
exactly. Like, I remember, I mean, there were a lot of people that are not influencers, that are family members, distant family members, that when it came to BLM, and if someone said, yeah, we're posting a black square on this day, um, they may not, post about anything political or anything, but that day they posted. And it's like, this is something that's affecting your own community, and you're silent. And homie, you're fake as
Yeah.
fuck. Like,
Yeah.
who are you as a person? And I think one thing that has happened is I've drawn a very clear distinction as to going forward who I'll be associating with and who I won't. And like
Yeah.
and
Same.
that is like through the, like, it's going to be one solid line, because it's disheartening to see that, like, when your own community is in peril, like, you were silent. um so that the other thing I wanted to touch on was, I don't know, with you I can talk about like anything. Where do you want to go? You want to go on freedom of speech, freedom of press, the Dalit community, rape in India? Where do you want
Oh
to go
man, yeah, where
next?
can we go? I think let's see, because people were commenting about human rights. I mean, they're saying this is a human rights issue. Exactly, it's a human rights issue. So when people have said, I don't know enough about the issue, including Punjabi or like other Indian, no offense, okay, Lily Singh and Mindy Kaling, I'm just gonna say the names. What other excuse? Lily Singh has posted more, right? So I'm not gonna say she hasn't, but their excuses for not posting once Mindy Kaling also came out to say something was that they didn't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is there's two things going on: the
Mm-hmm.
laws and the human rights,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you can't by seeing a picture of torture understand, and I don't want to single them out. This is for anybody, right? This is just the example of those you can publicly see those messages out there. Oh, I don't know enough about the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know enough about someone getting tear gas or water cannon or hit with a baton.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't know enough about that to know it's breaching their fundamental human right to a peaceful protest. Like it's
Yeah.
just a stupid excuse for me, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. They just think that, oh, because it's not happening in our backyard, it's not as much of a fundamental issue, or oh, it's India, it's an India issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people are telling us, oh, you can't get involved in those issues, right? Like we've seen so many messages like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like if you can't stand up for the fundamental human right aspect of things, then I don't know, just like hypocritical. But yeah, we can move on to any one of those topics I'm down with.
Wow. Wow. No, but you just like, all right. I mean, I definitely want to respond to
Oh,
the
you want to talk? You can build on what I just said.
yeah. This is why, like, I think you two, like, everybody was so excited for us to go online, because I think we bounce things off each other really well. So
Same.
for those of you who do not know, there's this thing called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That was commissioned, declared, written by the United Nations. Guess who signed it? Remy, you want to guess who signed it?
Chaiwala, Momo, Momo,
The
Momo Mukesh Singh or Momo.
our people are going to be laughing. No, so
Oh,
the government of India signed it.
of course they
Literally
did.
put pen to paper and put their name on it. Now let's talk about what's in it. A, the freedom of speech and the freedom to express opinion by any media possible. So that covers like anything negative you want to say about a government as well, right? So basically, the United Nations, like, got together with a whole lot of countries and said, these are the basic human rights that we are going to protect. So that's
Yeah,
freedom of opinion and the right to express that opinion by any media or medium possible. That's one. And obviously that has not been allowed, right? They're like,
Yeah.
I mean, just today, I think it was I retweeted someone from the head of like Wire India talking about how like now like in order to have a story, journalists have to get it approved by the federal government. Like, okay,
Yeah.
like where did journalistic freedom go? Like the whole issue with the Google document with Disha Ravi, yeah, that was ridiculous. The whole thing with silencing and censoring the farmers' protest on Facebook and Instagram, deleting users off of Twitter, like I mean, yes, the United Nations made a very, minimal comment on, you have to turn the internet back on because that's like a means of expression. That's why they were able to do that, and that's why India had to listen. But this goes much, much deeper. They're like that's a fundamental right that's being taken away. Two, now I don't want to like talk about other things, but another fundamental right in the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was the ability to marry whoever you want and to have progeny. And that there's regardless of religion, regardless of anything. Now, I want us to think about love jihad. What the hell is love jihad, right? Why is the Bajrangi Dal going after like Hindu and Muslim marriages, especially if a Hindu girl marries a Muslim guy? Why are they going after that? That's in under like international law. That's illegal. Love jihad, and I forgot what law that falls under. That's illegal.
Yeah.
India literally did that.
Well, and 2 days ago, they said that they will say that LGBT marriage or LGBT partnership is not criminal, but they won't look at it as legitimate,
That's also against international law.
right? But on the United Nations point, I want everyone to understand that they're also fake, right? The fact of the matter is, like, we know, yeah, their mission statement says something. I already called them out. They did end up saying something like the week after or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, but their whole existence is based on human rights, right? You shouldn't have to ask somebody to do their job. You shouldn't have to ask the United Nations to stand up for minorities or those that are oppressed or those that are being violated, quite literally, right? And I had started a campaign thing and it got blocked after like 2 emails to them. My MailChimp, and like I don't know if it's because like they saw that it was coming from MailChimp or whatever, but after it didn't get blocked anywhere else. It got blocked to the United Nations. And so it's like, oh yeah, we're asking you to do your job. And I was like, I'm gonna expose you because your fundamental value and mission in life and your organization is based on that. And someone had commented because she had worked for the UN, was like, they're fucking bullshit. They treated me like shit. Right? And so it's quite funny to see that and then see where the Indian government is. Like, Indian government's going to be like the president of UN in the summer, right? Like, oh, yeah, you totally care about
President of the
totally
Security Council
Security Council. Yeah.
in August.
I need to do
Yeah.
a post on that. I need to read up on it more. But it's like, okay, so a country that has, or subcontinent rather, that has literally just done this to everybody is now allowed to be in that kind of seat.
Facts. I mean, I mean, I do understand. Like, the UN does limit how much influence the average person has with them. They don't respond. But I've also mentioned this a lot, that the United Nations works as a court, right?
Yeah.
You have to like prove everything, like everything. Like you have to come up with like reports, you have to come up with detailed kind of analysis. And I don't know, Komal always talks, I forgot what she says, is it consequential evidence? What kind of
Circumstantial?
yeah, well, whatever, the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
obvious evidence. So like I mean, that's basically what happens. And I think in that process, what ends up happening is a lot of things don't get addressed. Like, for instance, arbitrary detention, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, there's no way for someone who's working with the UN and not actually in India, taking videos of what's going on, to prove arbitrary detention. Like it takes a lot of work and a lot of pieces to put that argument together. Um,
Yeah.
But overall, like it's important for us to understand that India is violating democratic norms, right? Because in no other country do you have that. Also, with the Citizenship Amendment Act, um,
Mm.
I just have to bring this up because this is a big one that usually when someone is born in a country, they're automatically a citizen of that country, right? You can't deny someone's citizenship. And that also falls under Universal Declarations of Human Rights, and the CAA was um, like a direct, it was directly against the the United Declaration of Human Rights, and they didn't say anything regarding it. You know, um, they they didn't. I don't know if nobody brought it to their attention, like nobody said anything, like um but I do know that when it comes to India, like the kind of scrutiny the United Nations is facing now, that hasn't existed before. And I do
Yeah.
think that this scrutiny is new for India, and that's why they don't know how to handle it or how to respond to it. For
Yeah, like they're
instance,
actually being called out for once.
yeah, which is why you see just the absolute most horrendous responses. Like, the United Nations High Commissioner made a statement, I want to say yesterday, or in like, I don't know if it was today or yesterday evening. The permanent ambassador from India to the UN made like just nonsense statements saying that uh that what happened was like whatever statement was made was like biased and unfair, and like that the 26 was all terrorist activity. And it's like, okay, like most people from developed nations, or most people with just this much, exposure to the real world, understand that 10-point governments make terrorist allegations when they don't have any type of defense for something, right?
Yeah.
So, is there some sort of like a hierarchy system in place at the UN? Yeah. But I do think that Derai Drostai, yes, they took their sweet time, but they came out hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone had said you got to find their personal email addresses. Oh, I did. I didn't email their general line. I've done more than one campaign, whoever said that, and this is the only one that was blocked. But yeah, no, I mean, and the thing is that I didn't I didn't expect it. Like I
Yeah,
wasn't like they're going to stand up for us. Like I really did not expect that that would be
yeah,
happening because we're already seeing the ways in which we're getting the traction. Like our local media is not like some of it has not even given justice to the situation, right? Some of
mm-mm.
them are also putting out propaganda because of who's writing the article. Like,
Yeah,
and so it's all aligned with that and with that interest. And it's like kind of good in a sense that India hasn't dealt with it. Not that they not that other people haven't gotten justice, but it's like it's happening on a mad scale, and so you can, as I was saying earlier, blatantly see the propaganda. Like you can just tell by looking at what's posted that it's fake,
yeah,
right? So like they have like there's no other way about it right now. They're just like putting out Photoshop or something completely contradictory,
that's true.
and uh, and you're like, wait, what? What do you mean? Like that doesn't make any sense at all.
I think the Indian government wasn't ready for what happened. Like, I think they, a, like, highly underestimated the Sikhs, and then they highly underestimated the power of the Kisan unions, because both Manmohan Singh and I think there was a BJP prime minister before him tried to put similar laws into place, but because of the threat of a strike, like in a protest, they quickly stepped back. Like they understood the consequences, and I think that was an education thing that they
Yeah,
had studied history, and I think what we have with Modi is an uneducated fool who just doesn't know what's
yeah,
going on. Um, and Manmohan Singh was Congress, and I want to say Vajpayee was before. I want to say it was Vajpayee before Manmohan Singh, and he's BJP. And one, I don't think that they thought that there would be this much international support because of
yeah,
protests that happened for CAA or anything that came before this did not. It wasn't as organized, and it wasn't, something that happened like this. And I think that's where they kind of got stuck. Um,
Yeah.
and it's because of that, because they don't understand that, like, all of us feel the traumas that our ancestors have gone through. Like, they live in us, and that's where they kind of like missed it.
And they tried to bypass by doing it sneakily, but like people are going to know what the laws are, right? Like you can't sneak your way around it. It's not a secret.
Yeah.
You're affecting the lives of millions of people.
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't matter if you passed it during COVID or not. And yeah, I don't think they would have expected that they would have stayed this long.
No, I don't think so. I really don't think that they thought that this protest was going to sustain. And I think that's their mistake. And I think and the strongest thing is that Sikhi is like a grassroots socialist movement, right? It's like Langar, the Svant, sharing, Vandashakana, like all those, like you see that. I don't know like who said it, like, but this whole idea of Begum, that the protest, like the sites have become Begumpura, which in Sikhi is it's a line from Sikhi that now from the Guru Granth Sahib that now I can't bring up, but it essentially means like it's a place where sorrow doesn't exist. And that doesn't mean that like sorrow is absent. It means that they have put that behind and they look forward and they're trying to build a better tomorrow. And I do think that I think that's huge. Okay, moving forward, did we talk about journalism yet?
No, not really. Like I mean, like touched on it, but not in depth.
So what?
Oh, I was just reading the comments.
Actually, we have 7 questions. Let me just quickly take a question.
Oh shit, yeah, I can't see them on my hand.
Okay. Ajay wants to know if you're inspired by him.
No.
Ajay, what we want from you
always.
is an official puppy. Please.
Yeah, official one.
Yeah.
Make it official. Make it official.
Yeah, and Komal is taking applications for anyone that wants to be our puppy. Okay. 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 Simsation, so our Sim, is saying, what do you think about the intimidation tactics that Delhi police are using, like the sign at Tikri saying the protest is illegal?
Yeah, it's
Weird.
they think that people don't know their rights.
Exactly.
Like they literally think people don't know their right to the peaceful protest under Section 19 of the Constitution. Like, how is it illegal? What have they done that's illegal? They're peacefully sitting there and protesting. What, they're getting international support and donations and langar and seva through, a worldwide movement. That doesn't make it illegal just because it's bigger than you anticipated.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I love how you like pulled out the section of the Constitution that they're.
I did a post on that one.
You should.
Yeah,
okay,
I did already. I'll post it again.
All right. Sim goes, what do you think about the new law in India that says social media officials can be imprisoned for 3 years for not complying with I don't know what this means. Okay, for not complying with something. So basically, I don't know. Have you been on the group? I think we talked about this in the group.
So I have it open on my computer and I haven't looked at it yet because I'm like, oh, I should read about it and do a post. But the thing is you can't, I don't want to say you can't, it's India. They don't really have straightforward rules like they would in Canada. But like in terms of they just choose the flavor of the day, right? It seems like. So it's just like whatever we already know. But it's limiting freedom of speech, right? And probably getting passed through a majority that is upset with what's happening right now. Because they have a majority government that doesn't agree with the protest. So if new legislation and laws getting passed, I don't know who exactly is going through.
Exactly.
And yeah, like social media is a way to protect freedom of speech in terms of having access to information and outreach. But then it comes down to well, they're gonna have to challenge the constitutionality of that.
Hmm.
I need to read more about it, but in terms of like, it wouldn't fly here.
So I think basically what they're doing is because like Twitter kind of stood up to them and Twitter was like, no, right? Like we can't just delete accounts that
Yeah,
speak against
yeah,
you. Yeah. They're like
yeah,
we can delete accounts that, are threatening violence, but we can't delete accounts that are just speaking against. And I think that's what it's regarding. And it's basically just again to limit the information that's coming out and to prevent another worldwide, movement. Like I said, the Indian government doesn't know what hit them. And the way that they're reacting like this is basically it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's their way of saying, "Oh, Twitter, you have to take it down because this is our law."
Yeah.
Right? And then again, when did these laws get passed? When were they? Who did they consult? How fast were these put into effect? Laws don't get put into effect overnight unless you're fucking Modi,
Facts. Facts.
right?
Um,
Like it came out of nowhere. He just got hurt.
um, so the other thing I want to touch upon you is, being female in India, especially being a Dalit female in India, especially with the release of Nodeep Kaur, because what we have established with Nodeep Kaur is that sexual assault and rape um, is a problem in India because it happens so freely. And although we don't know, like Nodeep Kaur has and her sister have said, sexual assault, we don't know. We suspect that she was raped in custody. Um, and we also suspect that the other women who are in prison with her are also raped. And I think it's very important to talk about because can you hear me?
Hmm.
Like because I think the one way to violate a woman um in a way that she can she would have to live with the trauma her entire life is to violate her sexually, you know. And I think and the reason why I want to talk about this is because the comments we're getting, the people
Yeah,
commenting, that's BJP RSS mentality. Like there's a strong woman talking,
yeah,
rape her into submission.
yeah,
And that's how they treat their wives, mothers, sisters, and that's what they're putting in the comments. But let's
yeah,
talk about India as a whole.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
it, what do you, yeah, somebody saying she said four men beat her senselessly. Yeah, they were sitting on top of her. Um, she's gone as far as to say they sat on top of her and hit her.
I need to watch that video. It was sent to me. Like,
And,
go on.
huh? What?
No, go on.
And for me, it's like, there's like no limit, right? Does police brutality exist in developed nations? Yes. Yes, we've seen it. We've seen it with the BLM movement and George Floyd. I mean, somebody got knelt on just yesterday and died because of police brutality. But police brutality exists everywhere. But I think when it comes to rape in India, that's a um whole different animal. Like India wants to call itself a democratic nation, yet they are using torture tactics that don't even happen in, like, forget underdeveloped, non-developed nations, tribal
Yeah,
areas, right? Um, and like I don't know, like every third day, who's that absolute person that we hate? That's like Yoginath? Is that him? He's like the head, like the governor of, I want to say, Uttarakhand or UP or something.
I can't remember the name.
Or or it's just,
Yeah, I have a vision of the person in my head, but
the bald guy, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I think like it's the fact that we have rapists and leaders like that that are in office and perpetuating that women can be talked to and can be spoken to like that, then what? Oh,
Yeah.
Yogi, somebody just said Yogi Adityanath. UP. Sim says UP. So
Yeah. Okay.
what happens when you have leaders like that, right? What happened in Trump's America? Trump okayed. He commonized, like he made it common, that statement, grab him by the pussy, right? Like how vulgar. Like we would never ever expect that from, someone in a public office. But he made it so common and people accepted that, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, like him saying that and people accepting that, that's a violation of my civil liberty,
Yeah.
right? For someone to say, grab her by the pussy, like that's
And
like,
yeah.
say,
But
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the people that are making those comments are supremacists. Like if you look at Trump, white supremacist in America, in India, Hindu nationalist in India, right? If
Mm-hmm.
Obama was saying that, or Manmohan Singh was saying that, the treatment would be a lot different, right?
Yeah,
There's
it's
no
because
way
they're the
that,
majority.
yeah, there's a majority. There's no way that they would not be reprimanded for saying those types of things or allowing that certain behavior. As you're saying, with rape and stuff, it's a problem that's also passed down generation through generation, right? Even assault on South Asian individuals when it comes to family relationships in the Western world, and what girls will still put up with these days, right? But when you look at what's happening there, it's like you said, it's the way to shut them up, and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that that's acceptable. And as you're saying, the people in the comments, the fuck now, yeah, sure. Do you want to come and meet me, like at my apartment in Vancouver? Like, what does somebody expect me to say to them? Like, it's just so disgusting. It's just, it's just like, I don't understand where somebody had, like, what level of confidence, and I'm sure it's a bot, but like, what level of confidence you gotta have, or like, what you feel, what type of authority you think you have over another person to say that kind of stuff when we wouldn't even allow a partner or a family member or a friend to
Exactly.
talk to us that way. You think that you have the right to do that. And so when they're in jail, it's like, oh, don't ever go out and say something negative about us again, right? Don't ever say something negative about the government again. Don't ever go and stand up for yourself because you're not allowed to do that. And in Navdeep's case, we were talking a bit about in our chat the other day, like, if she was raped, for sure, like we can assume some sort of sexual assault, right? At
Oh,
least from
100%.
what
Yeah.
she had said to her sister. But generally, it's the reasons and why she may not say anything. What's going to be the recourse for her to go out and say that this is what happened to her? So
Ex-
for her, it's like, oh, I can't even talk about it. This is a common South Asian problem, right? Not just Punjabi, the Sikhs, or Dalit. It's like, what is the recourse of me talking about this trauma? So you see that a lot. It's like, oh, loki na ki kya na ki kya honge, right? Like, I was the one that was raped and assaulted, but I'm scared to say something because I think I'm gonna get in trouble, right?
exactly.
You think you're gonna get in trouble for being raped. Like, that's how fucking messed up people in our culture are. Some people in our culture, not everybody, to the point of you're gonna gaslight somebody for being assaulted. And so for her, that's very much going to be a concern, because she's there. She plans to go back to Single Border, after spending time with her family. And I need to watch that video to hear what else. That was just from what I saw yesterday. But she's then, let's say, I don't even want to put words in her mouth or make an assumption. But let's just say any individual, right? It's like you're gonna go home, you're gonna go tell them what happened, you're gonna, do all of that, and then having to relive those moments in your head. Sometimes it's just easier to pretend it didn't happen,
Yeah.
right? In order, like, rather than actually going and expressing all of the details as to what, and then having the fear of exposing it. But for them, it's, even when it came to the veterans, two of them had said that they were stripped naked.
Yeah.
Male,
I mean,
80-year-old veterans, like, stripped naked in jail by police officers.
I was
Like,
so tormented. I kid you not, Rami. I mean, I told you guys this. Like I cried. Like there is not one interview or one picture I saw of them. Oh my God, I'm gonna start crying again. That I did not just absolutely break down.
yeah,
Like it's a different level of evil to do that to like 80, 90 year olds.
yeah, yeah. And like, yeah, I stayed detached. But then, like, one day I was thinking about, oh my God, what if that was my grandpa? And I was
Oh,
like, holy shit,
oh
I didn't think
my
about
God.
that. Sorry. I was like, I couldn't even like think about it that way, right? Like,
Like that's what
but
it is. Like you can't help but see your own grandparents. Like because like all of our grandparents are so into this, right? So like I 100% know like if my grandma was in India right now, like she'd be at one of the borders and she'd be like being obnoxious and in people's face. Like obviously I get it from her. So
yeah.
um I
Someone
don't
in the
know.
comments said it's important for Nadeep to talk about it. Yeah, of course it's important, but like
But
she's
like
not in the Western world where she has the privilege of speaking her mind openly without being reprimanded. Like there's nothing stopping them from going to the border again and taking her. We're not saying, knock on wood, they won't because of the amount of outcry that's already happened, luckily, through all of everybody on social media that's been posting about it. But
mhm.
like the situation is a lot different there. Like we're already oppressed when it comes to social stigma and sexual assault or assault generally or rape in the Western world, right? Like they're not even treated as people that are allowed to have a voice in the first place. And then you look at the intersection of her being a Sikh, a young woman, a Dalit, an activist, as well as someone young that's already happened, it's already happened to her, and looking at that in the public eye, like what she says is not staying at home. It's not staying in a counselor's office. It's not staying in her doctor's office,
Yeah.
right? And now, like, we'll see what comes out with the medical reports and all of that, right?
Oh,
But
they published a
it
very initial
oh,
I think I
I'm clearly behind it.
I retweeted it or something. Like there were blackish, bluish bruises on her thighs and buttocks that they assumed were made by a blunt object. So she was beaten and assaulted in private areas. Like think about it. Like we like when we're fighting with our spouse or significant other, we don't even allow him to touch us, right? Imagine the level of violation you would feel in a situation like that, right? Like that is so
Yeah, like, and she was in there for
over a month.
a month and a half almost, right? Like, it's
Imagine
insane.
what that girl went through. And honestly, nobody would have done anything had people not started raising voices for her. Let's not forget that she like it was either her or Rajvi or her sister who made the statement that there's an additional 20 girls in there. And she made the statement today that a lot of the women have said that yes, rape is common. So of those 20 women that she saw in Tihar jail, those women are being raped. And I haven't seen a single woman come out yet. So whether or not Nodeep Kaur speaks on it, because she probably won't. Like I don't think India is a type of country that there's so much stigma for a rape survivor that they they shame you into silence. But we have to know what certain words or certain types of bruises, what they mean. You know,
Yeah,
and I do think this was important to talk about because there was a certain somebody who made a certain statement on a certain stage in a certain place, and I thought that that was absolutely not okay because none of us know the truth. Um,
hmm
and I
to go and make an assumption and like to just shut down somebody's experience like that.
I mean, she very well could have been right, but like because we don't know the
Mhm.
facts, we can't put words in a victim's mouth, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, like that, like I think all of us, like me, you, and all of us, actually everyone in our group was like, "What is this woman doing?"
yeah,
Um, and at that point, like I did say, like, yeah, like these are the words that her sister said, but you can't make a statement that rape did not happen. That's not up for us or
Yeah.
anyone in the public to decide or say. That is not
Yeah.
our job. Our job is to be like, this is a member of our community. How can we be supportive? How can we help? You know, like,
Yeah.
because no matter what, this person like just went through a shit ton of trauma. And for giving, you know, this other public figure the kind of platform that she was given and to make such an irresponsible statement, like I think that's pretty big, because privately, like, we've all talked about it. Like, okay, this statement was made, like when the interviews come out of, like, you know, I know there was an
Yeah.
interview of Ranjit Singh's brother. There's been interviews of Rajveer. I've done interviews with people. Like, we try to dissect everything. We try to talk about, okay, this means this means this. What is this person saying? Like, we all talk about it. And yes, we have those conversations in private. But publicly, like, if you're going to come out and say that, you better have your facts straight. And the fact of the matter is, none of us don't. The fact,
Sorry, I have no idea.
did something
What
fall?
the fuck was that?
I don't know. You're,
Must have been some sort of spiritual sign. Something just that was so weird. Okay. So it's not like I live on the ninth floor. It just like something slammed on my window, and it wasn't even a bird. It was like a rock. I'm listening.
yeah. BTW, she has a absolutely beautiful view, which at nighttime is even
Oh,
prettier. So before we go, I'll definitely have her show you. But I need to get this out because I don't think anybody has spoken on this. That the fact of the matter is that we don't have any facts, like actual facts of what's going on the ground. So we can't really make assumptions, you know? Um,
yeah. Yeah, you can't make assumptions. Like you can't make a blanket statement. And the thing is like sexual assault and rape aside, what she went through was already insane and so much trauma. Add any of that onto what she already went through, right? And then in the event that what this person had said or anybody that's saying it didn't happen is saying, to then diminish her reality, to act like it, you know, it wasn't valid or it wasn't something that even happened when she hasn't probably even processed it. It's just like next level.
yeah, that was next level, not okay. I mean, I know, like, we also had like a very, very, all of us, like a very, very long conversation that in India, like, um the sexual assault is not considered serious. Like what did we talk about? I think we were talking about at that day, like, about that law that children, that it's not groping unless it's under a shirt, right?
Yeah, like it's over clothing is isn't considered assault.
Yeah. So
It has to be under or some stupid fucking insane shit like that.
yeah, that was, I remember that day because all of us were just fuming.
It's disgusting. Like that's why I was saying it just depends on the flavor of the day. Like it just depends on who's there hearing the case, which is just so ridiculous.
Like, let's actually talk about this. Every day I feel like is different, and something happens every day, whether it's good or bad. Like, we like if like there's always something that, like, it consumes us in a day when it comes to the protest. Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes like we're just slower days, but as I was saying the other day to one of our peeps, it was like it's okay to have a slow day. Like we don't have to be amped all the time. But there's always something new that happens or something the court does in an unrelated case that's gonna piss us off just to show the how like fucked up it is on a wider scale and not just, you know, on the protests, like how are
Hold
you know,
up.
like the gay marriage thing. Like the oppression overall, right?
Yeah. So someone just said, what do you think about as to why farmers from all over India are not part of the protests in comparison to the northern state? That's not true. All of India
Mhm.
is protesting because these farm laws affect all of India. And I think you can look up images of Tamil Nadu, or was it somewhere in the south, where they're holding skeletons, and those are from farmers' protests from, I think, last year. The whole, like, farming community is up in arms
Yeah,
about this because they're so disproportionately affected. So people in
yeah,
here that are trying to say it's only India, it's only Punjab, That's not true. See yourself out, please. Like,
And also, you have to keep in mind that majority of the farmers are Punjabi, so you're going to see more representation that way. So you have to look at the overall numbers, and people are protesting in their individual states and at their homes.
yeah.
So it doesn't mean just because they're not sitting there at the border that they're not protesting. That's not the truth. They've been going on last year in the individual states before people came here, and Tamil, as you're saying, Tamil Nadu, they're in the top 5 of agriculture in India.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah, it was Tamil Nadu holding skeletons of their relatives who have committed suicide in 2018. Yeah, like, I can't.
And 30%, right? 70% is Punjabi. Look at the other 30% in the individual states are going to be at. So have to be, you see people from other states there. In UP, obviously, it's northern. And so, protests are getting bigger in UP. I think we saw something about that the other day. But it's not. It's like, and this is why I think it's also important for us to continue to shed light on the fact that this is not a Punjabi or Sikh movement specifically.
Yeah.
Giving light to all the other, like the Jains, the Buddhists, the Christians, Hindus, the Sikhs as well. Everybody that's involved in this that are farmers from different backgrounds. It just naturally is, due to numbers, more Punjabis and or Sikhs that are protesting because of the vast majority that will be affected. And so it's just the blatant objective fact of it.
Yeah.
It's not that it's Punjabis against Modi. It's just like they're disproportionately affected by this. So you're going to see more of them speak about it.
Facts. Actually, you're right. You're actually 100% correct. Hold on. So Bay Area Kisan movement goes, Punjab is pumping all of its groundwater to feed the nation of India, and soon Punjab will be fighting for its water rights. Okay. That's a whole other can of worms. Like, Punjab's going to be they're estimating that within the next 20 to 30 years, Punjab's going to be a desert.
They've already seen droughts over the last decade. Some of this was to do with the changing irrigation systems, the mandatory sprinklers that had to be put into effect, which use more electricity, which then put farmers into debt. Only 11% got their government subsidy after being required to make these changes. But it's a big, like you're changing their whole system, which fucks with all the water. And the ways and the directions in which it's going, I don't know. I don't know enough about the system. I think that you probably know more, but it's like it's not the first time it's happened in India. It's been happening for decades. And it's something Winston Churchill talked about, fuck him, but he talked about like before. Right? Like he talked about during the time of colonization about these types of issues. And it's like it's still prevalent, even though in ways we're not under British rule, but we are. Not we. I guess I'm in BC. I guess I am in British rule.
I mean, wait. Oh yeah, British Columbia. I think
the Queen governs us in Canada.
Still? There,
in a way, like it's always the Crown. Last week I had it was Her Majesty the Queen, and like something, and I was like, it's so weird to say. We don't talk to her.
Yeah, we don't talk to her. What was I gonna say? So when it comes to water rights, those were the reason why the 80s were so turbulent, right? Because Punjab was like, we want our water rights back, right? And lots of things happened, which we're not going to get into right now because I want to keep it about the Kisan movement. And like, if Rami and I start talking about the 80s and everything that went down, like we're going to be here for another 3 hours.
But yeah, like it's all connected, right? So
it is, because it's
the 80s, but the water.
No, but like so here's the thing. For some odd reason, I do feel like the Indian government, since or even before India became independent, there was some sort of like buri nazar that they had on Punjab and Punjab's land. And I think this is the continuation of that. Like, for some reason, they don't seem to understand how Punjabis can always be in Chardi Kala and make the best out of a bad situation. Dude, I feel like
Yeah,
Ajay is going in and out of the chat. Ajay, can you stay and listen to us, please?
I'm like going through comments. I missed so many. Um,
Um,
no, you're right.
that
You
okay.
still be. Shut up with you.
Ajay, we want a pubby. Can you find us a pubby? Okay. The other, I think the last, so we briefly touched on Ranjit Singh, but do you want to talk about Shiv Kumar a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, he is also in jail for protesting, is part of the union, right?
Yeah, he is part of a union.
And he's been,
I think he was a union leader.
yeah, union leader. I don't know the exact name. I know there's like an M and K in there and to be suspected, but he's been beat as well, brutally. His medical report came out showing, that he's been beaten by the police. His
Hmm.
toenails have been ripped off.
I find that
And I just like can't even like that. Like when you cut your nail too deep and it fucking hurts?
yeah.
Like, oh my God, your whole nail. I mean, my friend had issues with her nail and the doctor to take it off. And that was just one. And like I remember that the amount of pain she was in. But she had like pain medication and treatment for it,
Yeah,
right?
like
They're intentionally doing this to him to torture him. And it's just absolutely fucking absurd.
that's what I'm talking about. Like who does that to somebody? Like we have okay, allegations of rape on women in police custody. We have nails being ripped off and beaten to the point where bones are being broken. And when they're elderly and fragile, just strip them and humiliate them. Like, can we talk about police atrocity? Like, and there's it's almost like it's state sanctioned, right? The government doesn't want to do anything to fix it. Like
Yeah.
they're okay
Oh
with
no.
it. And here's the
It's
other thing.
state sanctioned violence in a way.
It is state sanctioned violence because the government that we have in place in India right now is all about like Hindutva ideology, in which the caste system has a huge role in it. And
Yeah.
they think anyone who's not Hindu is an enemy. So that makes Sikhs an enemy, that makes Christians an enemy, that makes Buddhists an enemy, that makes Jain an enemy, that makes Dalits an enemy, that makes Dalits, because they're fighting for equal rights for themselves, it makes them an enemy. And I think a lot of what Shiv Kumar went through, it's because he was a Dalit activist. He was a Dalit union leader fighting for his right. And it's kind of like to shut him up, like, oh, you want to, fight against, what the norms are. You don't have that right, is basically what they're telling him.
Yeah. And Dalits are, they can be any race or religion. They're just completely, they're at the, if you want to say, bottom of the food chain in India. Some of them only make like up to a couple thousand rupees a year, which doesn't even give you enough to like buy a proper outfit for us that have gone to India.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like to go shopping and stuff. It's like, what can you buy with a couple thousand rupees with $30 in your pocket, let's say, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense. And
Yeah.
they have been promised things in the past in terms of negotiation and land, but for them it's like in order to actually sustain a piece of land, they have to partner up with like 5 different families. Right? Like they can't afford an acre or two. So then they end up becoming laborers on that land because they can't afford it. Right? So then what happens then? It's like, okay, you want to buy this land? Sure, right? This is how much it's going to be. Okay, you can't now maintain the land. 5 families can't maintain the land. All right, let me buy it then, and you can work on it for nothing.
Pennies. Yeah. That's the
Pennies.
other thing. Like,
Literally pennies, not even an exaggeration.
oh, I think, well, we started this at 5. It's been an hour and a half.
Oh, whoa, has it?
Yeah.
I didn't realize. We'll do it again.
Oh yeah, we have to. I feel like, is there a way to like I want to figure out a way to get like a lot of us on here, like me, you, Como, and like the rest of our group.
Yeah, I don't know if are we able to have more than one screen.
I don't know, like we have to like look it up. Maybe if we did it through another app and
Well,
somehow,
yeah, I was gonna say we could do it off of Zoom and record it, and it can be uploaded that way.
but I think it's not the same as being live because like then we could be like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
just
I know it
talk.
won't be live
Yeah.
that way unless we're able to do it on YouTube or something. I don't know.
Sim goes Clubhouse. I don't have any followers on Clubhouse, Sim. Who are
And
we
I
gonna
don't have
ed
an iPhone.
huh? What?
I don't have an iPhone. You have to have an iPhone.
Uh anyways, can you show us
Yeah.
the view from your
I
like
was gonna say yes, but then there's some creeps on here, and then I live in a very specific area that they would know
uh
where I live, given the comments we got, just in
yeah,
case.
I like she lives in a very boss ass apartment.
It's fun. I live in
Wow.
downtown Vancouver. I love it. I don't plan to leave.
Mm.
What do these people do? There's a bunch of like people in bench suit outside, and it's Saturday, so I have no idea why. But sure. But yeah, no, I love living in downtown Vancouver. I'll probably go for a walk after this around the water, and it's great. I can't complain that way.
And just enjoy being the boss lady that she is.
Thanks. This was so much fun.
This was a lot of fun. I hope we covered a lot of like educational material and I'm glad we got to address the statement that was made regarding no deep because
Yeah, same. I think that's important.
that was very very important to address it because nobody really did. Like I feel like it was only people in the West and no actual like person with a significant amount of followers came out and was like, "This is out of line," and I think that was
Yeah,
necessary.
yeah. And I mean, if anyone has questions, I don't know how you feel, Monica, but you could just message me like what you would want us to talk about the next time on like the topics to be covered on a live next time.
Yeah.
And I don't know what questions were submitted because they're on
Oh
your
yeah. Oh,
end.
we have 13. Hold on. Let me check.
Like screenshot them maybe. Or did we go through them
Oh,
all?
Sim goes. Sim Sim asked a kind of controversial question. Should we address it?
Sure.
Alrighty. I'm gonna let you do it. All right. Um, how do you guys feel about the groups in the diaspora competing over rallies and words of advice for those?
Yeah, I think it's dumb. Um, like in general, I haven't been promoting rallies just because it's COVID and a lot have happened, and I made a post about it. But it's not. The thing is that this rally thing has some people have like their own little sects and like communities, right? So you want recognition for it. Some people have turned their parts of the rally into something Khalistan. This is not a, I'm going to say it openly, like my opinion is, so I don't want to say it's Monica's opinion. This is not a time to bring Khalistan into the farmers' protest. Keep it separate. That's just what I believe. So I've seen that happen here, which caused friction,
Mm-hmm.
which also caused the toolkit scenario. And, love the creator of the toolkit. So it's nothing even to do with that. It's just that the Indian government latches on to anything they can
Mm-hmm.
to make it an issue,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even if it's not being promoted as something controversial. And so it's, when I've gone to some rallies, some people have just been like outwardly religious.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like the point of the rally is not for it to be a religious thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, then it brings in the issues that people have between culture and religion,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like the different beliefs, which aren't even really sick issues or cultural issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, and then a part of it has to be like, oh, I want recognition for putting this together. I want the best one for putting it together, right? Like what the fuck's the point then in like trying to create everybody or create awareness around it? But yeah, I haven't seen too much issue other than those couple of things that I pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've known like a couple of organizers of them just because like they wanted me to help promote it. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, I haven't personally in Vancouver seen too many too many problems with it. Just that,
There's problems happening other places. It's just
yeah,
because if you haven't seen it, like the world is
yeah,
much bigger than Vancouver, I promise.
yeah. So that's just like what I've seen here. But people do it for clout, of course. Like I've heard that here, but I don't know what's going on in other areas. But then people just, as I said, do it for their own interest, right? Their own movement, their own like, oh, what is my narrative and what do I want to get put across, rather
Yeah.
than what have the people in India asked us to keep it as,
Facts, though. Facts.
right? Someone said if they're putting only Sikhs in jail, so it's religious. No, they're not putting just Sikhs in jail. We already just talked about someone that's in.
Not Sikh. Hello, Shiv Kumar.
Yeah,
Um, so here's the thing, guys. You also have to understand that we don't know who the non-Sikhs are in jail because nobody's spreading awareness about it. All the ground reporters, which community do they belong to? Right? We literally have no facts. So don't say that there aren't like non-Sikhs in jail because we don't know that. So it's not fair to
mm-hmm.
make that assumption. We know for a fact that Shiv Kumar is not a Sikh
Yeah,
and he was tortured brutally. You know, yes,
yeah,
Ranjit Singh is a Sikh, and we can assume that he was treated the same way. But to say like be cautious of the statements you're making because they can hurt a lot of sentiments. Like we won't know until like we won't even know after all this is over who's still in jail, who's not, because all of our information depends on ground reporting from India, right? So
yeah,
we literally have no information, and because of this, like the regression on the freedom of journalism, there's no way to verify what's real, what's not, and who's in with like the Badals and who's not.
yeah. And then on top of that, as we'd already commented on, it's like, or I did specifically, the not making it a Punjabi and or a Sikh issue. As you said, the 80s are a whole other thing also to be talked about maybe on like a different day of how that plays into this. But making this and I'm not saying that this is what the person is doing in the comment, but like making this a Sikh or Punjabi issue just kind of defeats the whole purpose of us coming together and unifying to create awareness for farmers, because they're not all in one race and or religion. And even within the Punjabi community and Sikh community, people are different, right? And so it's about keeping that in mind, is that everybody has their own story. We're only getting what we can see, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
from journalists, and there are more people in jail than we know. There are a lot more people dead than we know,
Yeah.
right? The number that we have is not an actual number.
Yeah, you
It's just
have
the
to.
ones that are accounted for.
Yeah. You have to keep that in mind. Like for instance, when it comes to people in jail and the FIRs that are being put in, it's the in like the like we don't have people in the jails doing the counting. It's the information that we're getting from them or the families that have stepped forward.
Mm-hmm.
And the families that have stepped forward are also the families that have the means to step forward to say, "Hey, our son is missing or our daughter is missing or our father is missing." So we have to account for all that. We have to hold people accountable for that, and we have to just be smart about what we're saying. Like that's really important because when you have a platform, any platform, um a lot of times we have the power to spread information, but we also have the power to spread misinformation, and we have to be
Mm-hmm.
very careful that we're not spreading misinformation.
Yeah. Or like selective information or one-sided, and keeping
Yeah.
it to, the overall issues
Mm-hmm.
that we're seeing, and making sure that everybody that is affected by these are having that opportunity. We have the privilege to be able to speak about that.
Yeah, the other thing I want to say very, very cautiously is that be careful who you are turning into a hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
There can be wolf in sheep's clothing. Please be mindful. Like, and I remember I had a disagreement with somebody that it's very important to understand there's a huge um political game behind it that's trying to benefit from this. I don't even know if I'm wording this correctly to explain to you. Just be mindful who you're turning into heroes.
Yeah. And who could be, I don't have any examples, but like who could be doing things for a political motive, right? To like
Mm-hmm.
get those votes or act like they care. And it's not that they don't. We don't, I don't want to say that these people don't. 'Cause I don't even have an example of anybody.
Yeah.
But,
We
it's
don't,
like,
and we're not going to give examples because I
yeah,
mean because for instance, we could be wrong, right?
yeah,
Like we could be completely judging someone and be totally wrong. So we're not that's not our point. We're just saying that people who have a somewhat of a large following or who are trusted to be credible sources, be careful. Be mindful of who you turn into heroes. That's it. That's all. Anyways, I think now we've gone over an hour and a half. We should probably call it
yeah,
quits now.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty. All
This
right.
was fun.
This was fun. Love you. I'll see you in the group
Love
chat.
you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye. Bye.